Members, we are now going live. Okay, thank you. Welcome everybody to this rather hot council chamber, 11th of August 2026. And welcome to the members of the public and the press, and also people watching on the internet. This is the extraordinary meeting of BCP Council. I'm Councillor Leslie Dedman, and as Chairman of BCP Council, I will be chairing this meeting and supported by Vice Chairman Councillor Simon Bull. I'm now going to go through the housekeeping arrangements for the meeting. Please note that we are being recorded by the Council for live and subsequent broadcast, and this will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. So in order to ensure the meeting is managed effectively, please could everybody follow these ground rules. If you wish to speak, please indicate by pressing the button on your microphone. Your microphone will then turn green. Please then wait for the officers to activate your microphone and then begin speaking when the microphone turns red. I know that some of us find this counterintuitive. Where there appears to be consensus in the meeting for a motion, I will ask if there is any dissension. When a formal vote is required, this will be carried out via the desk equipment, and the results will be displayed on the screens in the chamber. And if requested, a recorded vote will require support from a quarter of the members present at the meeting. If we agree, it will be carried out via the desk equipment. And the result of any recorded vote will be displayed on the screens, and named voting results will be included in the minutes of that meeting. Members, if you want to leave the meeting, please indicate just that you're going. But if you're leaving permanently, could you please sign out of your microphone by touching the screen and then selecting the sign out option. In accordance with the Constitution, we will of course have comfort breaks as appropriate. And obviously, please avoid leaving in the middle of a debate. Points of order raised must state the applicable Constitution provision. And as I say, every meeting, and I'm sure we do, I will assume that all councillors will uphold the highest standards of conduct during our meeting. We treat each other with courtesy and consideration. And there is nobody actually in the public gallery and only one member of the press. This is just for people who are watching on the internet. However, we welcome everybody to these meetings. Your attendance is really important. It's part of local government democracy, and all members in our chamber support that. However, our full council meetings are not public meetings, so we only have public in attendance. Most importantly, no member of the public has a right to speak. This is a bit superfluous tonight, I'm afraid, unless the member of the press will want to say anything. Right, so we are now going to move right on to agenda item 1, which is apologies. And I think we have to sit quietly while we read out a great big list. Chief Executive, yes, could you read out, please?
Thank you. Good evening, Council. So apologies have been received from the following: Councillor Hazel Allen, Councillor Julie Bagwell, Councillor Olivia Brown, Councillor Jude Sputt, Councillor John Challinor, Councillor Peter Cooper, Councillor Mike Cox, Councillor Anne Filer, Councillor Crispin Goodall, Councillor Jeff Hanna, Councillor Pete Miles, Councillor Lisa Northover, Councillor Jamie Martin, Councillor Rachel Patterson-West, Councillor Vanessa Ricketts, Councillor Kate Salmon, Councillor Lawrence Williams is here, so I'll strike through, forgive me. So Councillor Williams is here, Councillor Kieran Wilson, and Councillor Sarah Armstrong. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'm really glad to see you, Councillor. Nice that you're back. Right, agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Again, Chief Executive, can you report on the declarations of interest we've received?
Thank you. So if any member is required to make any declaration of interest, they should refer to the flowchart that's set out in the agenda for guidance. And Members are advised that dispensations have been granted to all dual-hatted BCP councillors who also sit on or work in town and parish councils. And this is in respect of the motion later on this evening relating to the provision of assets for town and parish councils. And by granting this dispensation, it will ensure that all councillors are freely able to fully participate in the debate on this matter and to vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Executive. That's very helpful. Agenda item 3, confirmation of minutes. Councillors, we're looking at the minutes of the council meeting on the 28th of July. Do we have any dissension from confirming those minutes? Are we agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much, councillors. Right. Agenda item 4, announcements and introductions from the chairman. I have not really anything much to say about that, apart from I did attend at the YMCA, the High Sheriff of Dorset has walked around Dorset, which is however many miles, and has done a very, very good job at raising money for people of the sort that are in the YMCA. So yes, I attended that, and it was very interesting to see the YMCA and to see their wonderful gym. So that was really all it was. I don't know. Councillor Bull, did you have any engagements?
Just the one, thank you, Chair. I attended the Roma Holocaust Memorial, which was a very moving event.
And I've just got to go back on myself because I have just remembered, and this is where, if I'd listened to what I was at that particular function, I know all of our Bournemouth University people, and we are getting on very well with all of that. As I say, I don't really know much about it, but yes, that was the other thing I should have mentioned. Now, I'm afraid that we have one announcement, which I'm very sad about, and most of us know now, I think, that Kat Macmillan, Head of Communities, Partnerships and Community Safety, passed away peacefully a couple of weeks ago. Kat was well loved and respected and incredibly dedicated to the community she worked with. And with someone as talented and as kind as Kat, it's really difficult to find the words to express our sadness. But I know her loss will be very deeply felt. And he says he wants to convey his deep shock and sadness at the passing of Kat. We worked on several projects, and eventually she became a member of staff for the Boscombe Regeneration Project called Neighbourhood Management Boscombe West and Springbourne, of which he was a board member. And his comment about Kat is very moving. He says, throughout the time, I found her passionate, kind and considerate, not wanting to get involved in the politics, but to make areas and people's lives better. She was an advocate that had community embroidered in her tapestry, and that is why people loved and respected her. And there was a little bit more, but that's the gist. I think we can all feel that. So can I ask that we hold 1 minute silence to remember Kat, and to also think of her family, husband Chris and her 2 sons, Riley and Joel. So members, can I ask you to stand for Kat? Thank you very much. Thanks. Oh, yes. Right. The last announcement is to welcome Tim O'Gara, to whom I am pointing. So sorry, Tim. He is going to be, or indeed is already, thank goodness, our new Director of Law and Governance and the Monitoring Officer. So welcome, and I'm sure everybody wishes you luck with all of us. We're not as bad as people say, Tim. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Members, agenda item 5, appointment of Director of Children's Services. Councillor Richard Burton, I understand you will move the recommendation and then ask Councillor Toby Slade to second the move. Okay, thank you, Councillor Burton.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, so earlier this year, Cathy informed me that she was going to retire. Finding somebody to replace Cathy Hadley as the Director of Children's Services wasn't going to be an easy job. Remember, when Cathy started Children's Services was in a very different position to where it is now. Children's social care was inadequate, our vulnerable children were not safe, our Ofsted CQC SEND inspection said we were right at the bottom of the lowest category. Cathy's work leading the team has turned this around. So we went out to recruitment. We needed to find the right person. I think you'll all agree that the Director of Children's Services is one of the most challenging positions in the local authority, if not the most. I hope Chief Executive doesn't mind me mentioning that, but I think he might even agree with me. We asked Penna to start the recruitment process and we received 16 applicants. This was quite a success in itself. I wasn't involved in Cathy's recruitment, but I believe that we only had one candidate then, and that was Cathy. This does demonstrate that a number of applicants are not necessarily needed to fill the role, but I would say that it does help. We sat down with Penna and a long list of candidates was drawn up down to 7. These 7 were subjected to a technical interview conducted by John Coughlin, who many of you may know from his input and work with the BCP helping with our improvement journey. We shortlisted 4 and they had a full day of interviews with a formal interview panel, including presentation, external stakeholders panel, financial case study panel, corporate management board panel, and most importantly, 6 young people. The panels included 8 councillors across 4 groups, and I want to thank everybody involved for taking the time and an incredibly useful feedback from all the panels. I'd also thank Dennis Nelson, who was our independent observer, for his reassurance to the process was fair and compliant. The feedback told us we had a strong field and each of the candidates had their own strengths, but all the panels had one candidate at the top of their list. You have all had the confidential appendix earlier, but I can now name the recommended candidate publicly as Claire Shields. The contents of Claire's CV is in the exempt section, so if anybody has any points to raise that we need to discuss, we'll have to go into private session. But I can say that Claire has had more than 20 years' experience across children's services. She's currently the Director of Children's Services from January 24 to the present at a smaller local authority. Previously at another local authority, she's worked within early help, social work, social care, education, inclusion, SEND early help, commissioning and corporate parenting. If you agree to her appointment tonight, I think she's going to continue the improvement of the service, and I'm looking forward to the possibility of working with her. The Director of Children's Services role holds statutory responsibility under Section 18 of the Children's Act 2004 for leading, managing, delivering local authority education, social care and safeguarding services to improve outcomes for children and young people. If you agree with the recommendation, Claire will have to work a notice with the current local authority. Because of this, we need an interim DCS. I was keen for us not to have an external interim, as I know that we have the expertise available in-house, and an external Director of Children's Services would also be costly and risk upsetting our direction of travel. The paper recommends that we appoint Juliet Blake, currently the Director of Children's Social Care, to act as an interim from the 4th of August for approximately 4 months so that Claire can work her notice. Juliet has been extensively involved with our improvement journey and knows BCP's Children's Service intimately. She'll be a steady hand at the tiller. I'm hoping we can take these 2 recommendations together. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. Councillor Slade, you wish to speak to second, please.
Second, nothing to add.
Members, if anybody wishes to speak on this, just remember that there are exempt appendices attached to the reports that you've had. So I don't know if anybody does want to make a comment before we go to the vote. I can't see anybody waving their hands or doing that. Right, okay. So, Councillor Burton, you're supposed to sum up at the end of the debate, of which we have had none. So, would you like to say one more word before we go to the vote?
I don't think I need to, Chair.
Members, I'm going to ask that we go to the vote properly with our machines, please. So, can you please do that now? Have we all voted, everybody? Much. I believe that the sound is not working on the live feed, so we're going to have a look at that now. So, short break, please. Thank you, members. I think that has been cleared up. Right. Agenda item 6, notices of motions. Council, we're going to consider the motion submitted for the meeting scheduled for 2nd of June 2026, which was subsequently cancelled and deferred from the meeting held on the 28th of July 2026. So the motions are going to be taken tonight in the order in which they were received. So the first motion to council in front of us is protecting children from vape shops near schools. Councillor Sharon Carr-Brown, can you move your motion? And you have up to 3 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. You have the motion in front of you. This motion is about protecting children and acting early, not about banning businesses or overstepping our powers. The government has moved firmly in the direction of stronger controls on tobacco and vaping, with a clear focus on preventing young people from taking up harmful habits in the first place. I've been asked today whether I'm still going ahead with this motion in light of today's announcement from the government, and my answer is yes. Because my intention with this motion, or our intention with this motion, is to align BCP with that direction of travel and ask us to be at the forefront of tackling this issue. There's still things we can do, and I hope you agree. While it's illegal to sell vapes to under 18s, the growing number of vape shops close to schools sends the wrong message. Visibility matters, location matters. What children see on their way to and from school shapes what feels normal. Every time one of our children walks past a brightly lit shop selling neon-coloured, toy-like products with a hint of danger about them, we're putting temptation in their path. And if they do this every day on the way to and from school, it becomes normalised. Vaping is a great way to help adults stop smoking, but I'm going to take a guess that your average 55-year-old doesn't want bubblegum flavour. Vapes are still addictive, they still contain nicotine and are designed to create a habit that never needs to start. The Tobacco and Vapes Act, passed in April, is already dealing with flavours, design and marketing to children. Beyond our high streets, we have a public health duty. I raised the issue of problematic vaping and cessation support in schools a year ago with our Director of Public Health, and we've been in dialogue ever since. I know that he takes this very seriously, and I commend him, commend the Council and its partners for the Young People's Vaping Support Service pilot that I believe is scheduled to start in our schools, so that any young person struggling with vaping addiction can find the help and support they need. We need to reverse the fact that it's estimated that 1 in 5 children has tried a vape, and that a third of mystery shopping to buy vapes underage results in a successful purchase. The Labour government is addressing this with new measures announced today to assist councils and give them more power and say over what happens in our high streets. Labour believes in prevention, not just enforcement after harm has already occurred. And if we're serious about improving public health and reducing inequalities, especially for young people, then councils must use every lever available to them and think proactively about what will work best in their area. This motion is measured and responsible. It asks officers to look carefully at the tools we already have through planning, licensing and public health, and those new powers we're getting soon, and to report back with lawful evidence-led options. This is about doing our job properly, protecting children and working in step with the government's public health agenda, an agenda my group and our MPs wholeheartedly support. With the powers coming from government, it's up to us to be on the front foot to shape how we will use them. People want legitimate businesses on their high streets that contribute to their communities, pay taxes and provide a service. We also need to do everything we can to protect the health of our young people. This motion lays a foundation for BCP to take up the baton the government is passing to us and our communities want us to run with. I hope members will support it, and apologies for going over.
Thank you, Councillor Carr-Brown. Councillor Canavan, would you second the motion for us? Thank you.
Just to formally second it at this stage and reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Canavan. Members, do we have anybody who wishes to speak on the motion? Oh, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. I'm broadly in support of the motion, actually, and certainly the sentiment that it puts forward. And I know colleagues have had, there's been communication from planning and licensing teams. So as far as paragraphs 1, 2 and 3 of the resolutions that you're asking council to resolve, particularly around planning and licensing, councils currently have fairly limited powers to manage these concentrations of these premises, which appears to be acknowledged in the Prime Minister's statement yesterday. And we broadly welcome potential strengthening of local authority powers around that. I think paragraph 4 slightly overtaken by events. Paragraph 5, particularly around public health, I wanted to speak on because within BCP Council, our trading standards and public health services are already undertaking a range of activities supporting the sentiment of this motion. And our public health team, as you reference, are already sort of providing services and planning services in this area. So nicotine vapes do provide an effective aid for stopping smoking for adults, but there is clear evidence that vapes should not be used by children and young people, or those that don't currently smoke, due to the addictive nature of the nicotine and potential long-term effects, long-term harms for young people. But public health partners are working with education settings to provide prevention and cessation support for vaping and other nicotine-containing products through services that together form a vaping and nicotine pathway. As you mentioned, the Young People's Vaping Support Service pilot is due to be launched in September of this year, and this service will comprise a vaping support worker employed with you, one of our partners, who will work closely with BCP schools to deliver harm reduction advice and information to young people identified as vaping or using other nicotine products. And as well as that, since the beginning of July of this year, we have an under-18 smoking cessation service. So there's been a project officer for smoking vaping cessation within the Children and Young People's Public Health Service, working with schools, Pan Dorset. This is a practitioner, a school nurse role, who focuses on using a behaviour change approach for young people that reach out to the service and that are identified through other health needs contacts with a young person or at a school. Alongside supporting young people to stop smoking, the Children and Young People's Public Health Service is working on behaviour insights research through the local authority and NHS routes to understand the prevalence of young people smoking and vaping and build some understanding of support preferences for cessation. And they'll also support schools by signposting them to local or national PSHE resources to support a whole school approach to prevention. So we're already active in this area, particularly on public health, and you'll be aware of trading standards and the raids they make on certain premises. So I think broadly, yeah, we're happy to support the sentiments of this motions.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Hadley, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I support this motion. I think it's not just about children, it's about all people being addicted to substances. It seems that having dealt with cigarettes by persuading people to smoke outdoors, it's not just the nicotine, it's also all the other chemicals that you're inhaling. And it's a live experiment on the population in future harm. And I think we should be doing what we can to support people to avoid those risks. But also, vapes have been the cause of fires, both in people's pockets and through the waste stream, and is part of the challenges that we have with some of our waste lorries going on fire. We can never quite establish what is the cause of the fires, but batteries and the batteries in vapes is part of the challenge, and just that, the plastic in them. The other challenge, and I think Councillor Brown just touched on it, is the use of illegal vapes and the sale of illegal vapes. And some of these shops seem to have other economic ways to stay in business, which are perhaps less than legal. And I think anything we can do to discourage that, the better for our high streets and for support of our local population. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Councillor Burton, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd just also like to add my support for this. I mean, vaping is great as a way to give up smoking, and that's what that's why they were invented. For adults who smoke, who need a nicotine fix, it's a much safer way of getting that than smoking. However, of course, a lot of people who sell these have figured out that actually, as a business model, that doesn't work, does it? Because they put themselves out of business. Therefore, I do see trying to sell vapes to young people is a way of keeping a business going. Now, the issue is, young children, it is highly addictive, nicotine. That they are seeing it. You mentioned bubblegum flavour. I did a quick research. There's all sorts of sweet, sticky flavours available. Well, when you have a look online to what's there, therefore they are being targeted to children. So I am very happy to support this. I mean, the other thing I would say is that and I'm sure I'm not saying this happens in BCP, but I do also know that there has been quite a lot of looking around vape shops in grooming with children. And therefore, that also worries me. So the idea of keeping vape shops away from schools, I'm very much support. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any more speakers? Councillor Canavan, then, would you wish to speak now?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to those colleagues who've offered support for this motion. I think there's a real opportunity here for BCP to get ahead of what the government have recently announced. So we should be looking at all the legal options that we have and produce a report that looks at how these new measures can help us tackle this and strengthen our existing ability to protect children and tackle rogue operators. Colleagues, I'm sure will be aware that in the United Kingdom at the moment, the sale and supply of single-use disposable vapes has been illegal since June of last year. And for all remaining alternative products, there are strict limitations on what can be sold. And there's nothing in this motion that is intended to be critical of what BCP is already doing. And in the recent publicity of some success that our trading standards operation has had in tackling illegal vapes, and that's to be welcome. But there is a lot more that we can do. And the government are going to give us some new powers. So in the new year, there will be new planning rules, which will mean that vape shops and adult gaming centres will need planning permission before opening. And that should give local people and us as a council greater say over whether or not they are right for the area in which they are proposed. So it's also planned that councils will have stronger powers to stop vape shops opening in inappropriate areas, and including near schools. And that's obviously been the focus of this particular motion, and also to prevent clustering in our high streets. And that's what this motion is seeking this council to press forward with. So thank you, Chair. Thank you for the support, and I hope council will support this motion.
Councillor Carr-Brown, would you wish to reply to the debate, please?
Thank you. I'm going to even out going over before by not saying very much now. So I just want to thank colleagues for their comments. I absolutely acknowledge what BCP is currently doing. And I'm grateful that actually we are largely in step with the government. What I'm asking, because legislation takes time, things need to be worked through, regulations need to come on stream, that kind of thing, is simply for us to be ready. Essentially, that we will be at the vanguard of whatever is possible under the new powers that come in. We may not be the worst area in the country for this, but frankly, any child that takes up a habit that they don't need to start, which will have health implications, and certainly has societal implications, as we know what these shops largely mean for our high streets. We need to be doing whatever we can against that. So I welcome the support that I've heard in the chamber tonight. I thank you for it, and I hope that we, as I say, the intention of this motion is more power to BCP's elbow.
Thank you. Excuse me, Councillor Carr-Brown. Members, I haven't heard anybody speaking against. So is it possible for this motion that we could ask for consensus? Agreed? Right, Councillor Carr-Brown then, we've all agreed. Thank you very much for putting that. Very worthwhile. We have a motion now, motion to council members. Air quality, traffic congestion and public health in Hamworthy and across BCP. Councillor Canavan, I call upon you to move the motion on behalf of Councillor Peter Cooper. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. And just to alert Council to the fact that there has been an amendment to this motion. So I don't know whether you want to get Council approval. We're prepared to accept that amendment. So I'm just asking, Chair, whether you want to ask for Council's approval if they are willing to accept the amendment also.
So I believe, Councillor Canavan, we've all had the amendment and been able to look at it. It's been agreed by both you and your seconder. So Council, will we all accept the amendment? Thank you. Right, Councillor Canavan, back to you.
Thank you, Chair. So as you mentioned, Chair, this was a motion originally submitted by Councillor Peter Cooper, who unfortunately isn't able to be here this evening. And we had hoped it would be on the agenda for the last meeting, but unfortunately it was left off. And I was disappointed about that because, of course, at that meeting, we would have been debating it alongside the debate on the local transport plan. And there is some mention of air quality in the plan, but we need to be able to assess the impact of those measures that not only are intended to reduce car dependency, but also in terms of reducing traffic congestion on our roads, and also the impact that all of that has on our public health. Now, this wouldn't be a motion from Peter without the mention of Hamworthy, but the seeks to highlight the impact of traffic congestion on our air quality in specific areas and the consequences for public health. So councillors will be aware that BCP produces an air quality annual status report. And the one from 2025 makes clear that air pollution affects the most vulnerable in our society: children, the elderly, and those with existing heart and lung conditions. And low-income communities are also disproportionately impacted by poor air quality that exacerbate health and social inequalities. That report in 2025 also highlighted the fact that BCP, as I think we've become aware of, is the second largest urban area in the southwest, and that we have a range of transport challenges, namely our unique geography and incomplete strategic transport. These aren't my words, by the way, they're in the report. An incomplete strategic transport network and a lack of joined up travel infrastructure that has led to high car usage for people who live and work in our area. Now, the 2026 report has just been published, and that does show some improvement, and that is to be welcomed. But this isn't about patting ourselves on the back and how well we are doing. This is about trying to do more and trying to press further about what more we can do to improve our air quality. But I'm not sure our data is sufficiently robust for me to argue, for example, that we might want to introduce a zero emission zone or a clean air zone. But certainly something that I think is going to come on our agenda in a not too distant future. So if you look at the map in those reports, you do see the pattern of where the levels of pollution are greater on our main transport routes and our main road network. So I think that's an indication that that traffic is a significant contributor to our air quality. So that's our motion, Chair. Thank you for the amendment, which we support, and I hope Council will support it too.
I was going to ask Councillor Moriarty, who is seconding, but Councillor Earl has also, I can't even see Councillor Moriarty now. Oh, hello. So sorry. Would you like to speak first, and then we'll go to the leader?
Thank you. I just want to say I'm more than happy to second this amendment. Motion. And I'll reserve my right to speak if that's okay.
Thank you, Councillor. Leader.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to thank Councillor Cooper and Councillor Canavan and Councillor Moriarty for this motion. It clearly shows that Councillor Cooper in particular is passionate about his community and about his residents and the environment. Air quality is something that I also have concerns about, and I was horrified when I found out many years ago that my community had its very own air quality management area, which is an area where the level of pollutants exceeds safe levels. And I'm really pleased that work over many years, particularly between the council and the local bus services, has managed to resolve that issue, and it's no longer a place of high risk. And we actually don't have any more air quality management areas across BCP. What I would say is BCP Council carries out air quality monitoring, and it does publish the annual status report as part of its statutory responsibilities. Those reports track air quality across Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, and they do help to inform the actions that we take. Like I said, the most recent report found that there were no exceedances of air quality objectives, and it continues to show that there's a general downward trend in the pollution levels across the area, which is really encouraging. And actually, we've had a draft already sent to DEFRA of our next iteration of that monitoring document, which will be published as soon as they give us the go-ahead. You know, I didn't want to reject this motion outright. I don't think that would have been right, because we do share a lot of those concerns across the chamber. And that's why I was keen to amend it to ask councillors to support an altered motion that encourages it, which encourages us all to consider what can be done on a wider basis to actually improve not just air quality overall, but also our monitoring and our knowledge, so that it can best inform what we do about it. The other thing that I felt was really important, and I know that Councillor Cooper put this motion in long before the LTP had actually come to council, but I did want to use it to recognise the amazing work of the local transport plan for across Dorset and across BCP, and the accompanying implementation plan, because I really feel that document kind of grabs a lot of what we are trying to do with this motion. In the first objective, in objective A, it does actually recognise that air quality is one of those major priorities. And I just wanted to mention a statistic from the LTP4, and it was actually that when it comes to our emissions across Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, HGVs are actually, they only account for about 28%. Now, I know that there are not so many of them on the road, whereas cars are responsible for 70% of those emissions. And that's why the plan includes measures to encourage walking, cycling and public transport, and support a move to lower emission vehicles to improve the transport network and reduce pollution from transport, importantly. And this, of course, is a BCP-wide approach. So I'm looking forward to seeing what TAG find throughout their investigation into this, if they are willing to take that forward, because I think there is still more work to do. But thank you for bringing this motion forward, and I'm really glad we've reached a cross-party resolution on it.
Councillor, oh, excuse me, Councillor Earl, I didn't ask you who seconded your amendment. Councillor Tarling.
Thank you very much. I very much welcome this. Any move to improve air quality is welcome, and I'm very glad to see it amended, because it does actually reflect the work. Councillor, I just pressed the button for Council. I made this point about the HGV impact and other impacts. I just wish to mention, obviously, Hamworthy is very close to the Port of Poole. I'm not sure if any work has been done to assess the impact of shipping on air quality. The reason I mention this is the Port of Portsmouth. I know they have more ships in there than perhaps they do in Poole, but again, it's something that perhaps we could consider in future work, that we look at the impact of ships and the use of hybrid ships and plugging in under there's a ZEVI scheme that Portsmouth won to actually plug in the ship, so that any ship that comes into Portsmouth doesn't have to run its power generators. And I know the Port of Southampton, because I did actually work on this aspect, it accounts, the cruise ship accounts for 10% of the emissions of the whole of the city of Southampton. So yeah, just another point to be thoughtful of. Thank you.
Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I was going to make a point about the ferry port as well, because unfortunately the Barrowflower is announced, or it's been announced that Brittany Ferries is going to leave Port of Poole, and that's partly because they can't get the Barrowflower, as I understand it, to the quality standards needed by the EU, and because it's an old ship. But the Port of Poole are doing quite a lot of work on electric hookup for shipping, so that is in hand. The air quality annual report mentions Hamworthy, and it is one of the highest areas in BCP, along with Branksome, but it's less than half of the national limit currently, and that so it is perhaps one of the areas of highest readings in BCP. But I'm slightly concerned because I think there are other causes for air quality, and one of those is wood burners. And some people's heating systems, and I wonder whether the Place and Environment Overview and Scrutiny Committee would be a better place than TAG to debate it because of that, because it's not just about transport. But I don't know whether perhaps the chair of that committee might feel that that's appropriate. But I very much welcome this. I think air quality is a really important thing, especially in the peak periods in the rush hour, morning and evening, and it's children that perhaps are most vulnerable to exhaust. But getting people off of internal combustion engine vehicles and thinking about how they travel is a really important strand of this, which we have explored heavily through the LTP. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dove, please.
Thank you, and do thank Councillor Cooper. I appreciate he's not here tonight, and his colleagues for bringing this forward. As a little boy who's always in hospital, mother of a little boy who's always in hospital due to respiratory difficulties and scar tissue on the inside of his lung, I understand how important this is. I don't want to rehearse the debate that was had at our last council meeting regarding the adoption of the Local Transport Plan 4. This motion brings a lot of that argument back into play in this chamber tonight. I do have concerns regarding the adoption of that previous policy. I'm afraid I couldn't attend that last meeting, and I wouldn't have been able to support it at that time, given how tightly interwoven the wording is, not just regarding the air quality, but the fact that we should be supporting and delivering an adoption in full of this 5-year implementation plan. It's for that reason and that reason only I won't be able to support this motion, but anything else that we can do regarding air quality and understanding people at risk and how we can support them, then obviously I would support that. Thank you.
Are there any more speakers? No, that looks, I believe we go back to Councillor Canavan then. Hang on, I'm so sorry, Councillor Canavan. I didn't realise Councillor Moriarty reserved her right. Oh right, but I didn't hear what Councillor Moriarty said anyway.
So Councillor Moriarty does want to speak.
Yes.
But Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I just really want to say that this air pollution is an issue that affects communities right across BCP. Hamworthy has been mentioned several times, but also my ward, Eastcliff and Springbourne, runs right along the Wessex Way, and we get lots and lots of residents worried about air quality there. And it is a daily reality for so very, very many people, and it's having effect not only on profitability of businesses, but also health and quality of life. I have read the local transport plan, and yes, there are quite a lot of really good, ambitious points in it, but it is a 15-year plan. So I very much welcome the fact that we are going to have a report to look into, what more can we do earlier, really. I think it would be lovely to know that actually the baseline measurements that we are taking are robust enough, are frequent enough, and happen with along all areas of the with conurbation. I'm not absolutely convinced that we're doing that at the moment, really. We are doing what we need to do from a statutory perspective, but without a really robust baseline, how do we know where the worst hotspots are, whether interventions are actually making things better, whether things are staying the same, or whether they're getting worse? I think the ambitions of the transport plan are great. They don't help people today, and I'd like to think that this report will be able to help people in the shorter term, really. So yes, I welcome this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moriarty. Councillor Canavan, can I call on you now, please?
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for the comments. I think the mention of the local transport plan is important, even though I think there are elements of it which need further work. And the idea of it going to the Transport Advisory Group was my idea, because the original motion from Peter was very much transport focused. But I very much welcome the reminder about other factors that are impacting on air quality. And perhaps I might be able to have a conversation with the chair of the Transport Advisory Committee about how we might be able to receive views about those areas also. But I think it is important that we do that work, because there is still more to do in order to try and improve our air quality, and more importantly, to try and improve our monitoring. So thank you, Chair, and I hope Council will support the motion.
Right, thank you, Councillor Canavan. And again, I don't think oh, yes, Bobby wants to, yes. I think we need to go to the vote on our machines. If we can do that now quickly, please. Members, we're restarting that vote. We got a bit ahead. Members, I think we've all voted. Thank you very much. Thank you, members. As you can see on the screens, 78% of us were for, 18 were against, and it's disappeared. So, oh yeah, 2 were against, I believe. I'm going to move on now quickly. And members, can I apologise for the heat in here? I'm feeling it up here, and I've even got the fan behind me. I think it's really not very good for us to have to meet like this. Just saying that from the chair. I'm sure some of the faces around here agree with me, but I don't know what to do about that. We should meet in the open air, maybe. Beach meetings. Right, I think we finished the vote on that one. We've got now another motion to the council, and I think we're catching ourselves up here. Provision of council meeting facilities for parish and town councils without charge. This is Councillor Gillian Martin, and can you please move your motion for us?
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to move this motion today. We are accepting the amendment from Councillor Patterson West from the changing of the word without charge to cost neutral. But I'm happy to move it on that basis. At its heart, it's not a motion asking for council to make a policy decision. It's not a motion demanding free facilities tomorrow. It's a motion asking for something much more fundamental, the facts. When the new town and parish councils were created, residents were repeatedly reassured that they would not end up paying more as a consequence. However, the reality is that there are unavoidable administrative costs which are associated with establishing and running any local authority. Civil regalia, historical records and official possessions have to be stored and transported securely. This all costs money. Parking, facilities and operational support all have costs attached to them. The question before us is therefore simple. What is the most cost-effective way of providing these necessities? If town and parish councils are forced to hire rooms and facilities from private providers, that is then money leaving the local government altogether. It is public money received from our residents being spent outside the family of councils serving our residents. On the other hand, if BCP council facilities are used, we need to understand what the actual additional cost would be to BPC taxpayers. Is the marginal cost significant? Is the capacity already available? Are there better opportunities to make use of existing council buildings and assets? At the moment, we simply do not know. This is precisely why this motion requests a report. Before members can sensibly debate any policy, we need clear information on the legal, financial and property and proprietary implications. We need to know the facts and figures. We need to understand the costs, the opportunities and any constraints. This motion is therefore about evidence-based decision-making. It is about ensuring that future discussion is informed by professional advice as opposed to assumption. Mostly it is about exploring if money currently being spent on administrative overheads could instead be redirected towards services, community projects and improvements to our environment for our residents to see, enjoy and benefit from. After all, it is their money. As the principal authority, BCP Council has a responsibility to work constructively with parish and town councils. The best way to do that is not through speculation, but through a proper assessment of the options available. I therefore ask members to support this motion so that Council can obtain the information it needs to make any future decisions on the basis of evidence, value for money, and most of all, the best interests of our residents. Thank you, Chair, and sorry for going over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. I believe Councillor Adams is to second.
So I'll reserve my right to speak.
Right. The Chief Executive wishes to speak. Thank you. Councillors, we had an amendment to that, as Councillor Martin said, which as we know has been accepted. So members, are we, we've all seen that. I think it was circulated for the last meeting, which we didn't get round to. So are we all agreed that we can accept? I think there's a nod. I'm not sure. So Councillor Adams, you're reserving your right. Thank you. I now have Councillor Slade, please. Should I say Councillor Vicky Slade? Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I have to say I'm surprised at this motion because we are here as BCP councillors. Anyone who is sitting in this chamber is not here representing a town council, even if they happen to be a member. And therefore I am completely baffled as to why it is BCP Council's job to hear the concerns of two of, we have, I think, maybe 11 town or parish councils in the area, while the other 7, 8, 9 of them do not get freebies from BCP Council and would never ask for those. It is completely baffling to me that the town clerk hasn't actually come up with a budget which includes the costs of running the council. It is their job, in my view, to find the most efficient way of running that town council. And there's absolutely no reason why those meetings should take place in the buildings of BCP Council, which is a completely separate organisation. Christchurch Town Council doesn't meet in the former Christchurch town offices. Broadstone Town Council meets in a local church and pays its way. I'm sure Holdenhurst Parish doesn't ask BCP to give a freebie. And if we are going to be giving free or cost neutral space in BCP Council's buildings, I would be really concerned if that's sitting in this chamber, which is the role of this council. And I would then ask, when are we going to have the floodgates open? Because I would be asking, as a resident who is not in the Poole or Bournemouth area, why my council tax is being used for a third-party organisation to get free access to any part of this building, when every charity and third sector organisation is not getting that. Finally, I just want to touch on something else that was mentioned about regalia. At the last meeting, one of the town council members referenced asking BCP Council for storage in Poole. I went to Poole Museum a couple of weeks ago, and I asked the museum curator, who told me that she had not been approached by Poole Town Council to ask whether they would A, have space, or B, be willing to display the regalia. And I find it quite strange that the town clerks of these two councils are not advising the town councillors of how to do their job properly. Because at the end of the day, that town council could approach through their clerk the organisation, and I don't think this chamber is the place for these motions.
Thank you, Councillor Slade. Councillor Trent.
Thank you. The original motion is misleading in so many ways. It painted this distorted reality, overlooking how things have worked for many years. Many of those behind this motion should know better, as they were former charter trustees or part of the administration that created BCP in the first place, skipping important parts of the process, being in a hurry to replace the former councils to create BCP. The basic fact is, the charter trustees of both Bournemouth and Poole have always charged a council tax precept and have always paid from it the cost of rooms and facilities they use. For example, last year, Bournemouth charter trustees budgeted £18,883 for room and premises hire, plus additional amounts to cover things like insurance, auditors and IT provision. A more than adequate premises budget was set for all three town councils. An amount of £48,720 was set aside for premises and rent for Bournemouth Town Council, and £62,970 was set aside for Poole Town Council. It's worth noting that a rough estimate of the cost to Poole Town Council, if it chose to rent the vertical slice from the new owner of the Poole Civic Centre when that's finally sorted, is well within the amount set aside for premises. That vertical slice would have already been in place if the then administration that some were part of had not scuppered the plans at the last minute as part of their drive to create future places. Bournemouth had the advantage of having facilities, and still has the advantage of having facilities available to them to rent within the Bournemouth Town Hall, hence the need for less to be put aside. Unlike BCP when it was created, none of the new town councils inherited any debt. In fact, they inherited a share of surplus from each of the two previous charter trusts. If, as the original motion suggested, BCP subsidises new town councils, this same subsidy, if it's indeed legal, would have to be offered to the other town and parish councils within the BCP area. If the original motion was not rejected outright, then the sponsors need to identify which services are cut or facilities closed to pay for it. A modified motion, depending on the report back, might still have a cost that needs to be covered. I would suggest that I had more to say, but I would suggest that the two controlling groups and the new town councils that have no doubt sponsored this motion just get on, use their freedom and resources and start to deliver for their residents. Stop playing the victim card and start doing the job.
Thank you, Councillor Trent. The next speaker I have here is Councillor David Brown.
Thank you, Chair. And like my colleague, Councillor Slade, I'm also surprised at this motion. that of all the matters of importance to our local communities, our reform councillors and reform-led town councils choose the cost of meeting rooms to be one of their first priorities. Meeting rooms always cost money to cover heating, lighting, cleaning, equipment, staff, business rates, etc. If one organisation wants a meeting room free of charge, it's not free, it just means the cost burden is placed on another organisation. If an organisation decides to hold a meeting and needs a room for it, it's widely accepted that the cost burden for that should be met by the meeting organiser. So this is a discussion about whether the costs of town council meetings should be met by the town council precept payer or the BCP council taxpayer. But town council precept payers and BCP council taxpayers are one and the same. The motion even states in paragraph 5, the hire of meeting rooms and facilities are ultimately funded by those same local taxpayers. I've got a council tax bill here, and what we've been asked to discuss is whether the cost burden of meeting rooms should fall on the BCP council line or the town council line. And when divided among local taxpayers, this is likely to be maybe 10, 20, 30p per taxpayer. And we've been asked to decide, should it fall here or should it fall here? The name at the top of the bill doesn't change. The monthly direct debit won't change. All that will happen is a few pence will move from one line to another. So this is what we're debating here. And worse than that, Reform want our most highly qualified and highly paid staff, the Chief Executive, the Monitoring Officer, the Section 1501 Officer, and their professional teams to take time out of their busy days to hold some meetings, write a report all about this, look at the options before it comes back to councillors to decide on a policy. Frankly, you couldn't make it up. Reform want us to waste tens of thousands of pounds of taxpayers' money in officer time and councillor time to write a report and decide on a policy about whether meeting room costs of a few pence per taxpayer should fall on one line of a council tax bill or another line of a council tax bill. Frankly, I'd rather our most qualified senior officers spend their time wrangling with the real issues facing this council and impacting the lives of our residents, like how to provide quality care and support for those in need. How do we support the health and well-being of residents? How do we provide homes for our growing population? How do we tackle homelessness? How do we reduce drug and alcohol addiction in the UK, in our communities? How do we reduce crime and antisocial behaviour? How do we support local businesses? Not who pays for meeting rooms. I can't support this motion. Let's please have a short debate on this and move on to the important issues that really affect the lives of our residents.
Thank you, Councillor. The next speaker is Councillor Sidway, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think the three speakers so far pretty much summed up probably how an awful lot of us feel, but I just think it's remarkable they can even ask, to be honest. It's been pointed out why it's not a sensible use of our funds as a cash-strapped council. And it's also been pointed out what other town councils will think, Christchurch and the others, who've been paying for their rooms for 6, 7 years now. Maybe they'll get a refund for all of the time they've been doing it. But these councils were set up with a precept that raised a significant sum of money. And there's a line in there for accommodation, as was pointed out, Tony, in far more detail than I'm going to. And that's for whether it's temporary or permanent. So if they haven't got a permanent and they want to go for the Pool Civic Centre, then that's fine. But in the meantime, they can still pay for some temporary accommodation. And as chair of Broadstone Town Council, I'm absolutely delighted that we can put some of that money back into our local community facilities and hold our meetings in a church hall that, to be honest, is far more welcoming to the public than this chamber. And we do get some people come along, so probably more than tonight as well. So why did the other two councils feel the need to hold their meetings in these formal locations and without paying for them? I think you've all probably made your mind up already, but I think they should get on with being a fully functional council, use the money they've been given to spend on hiring these rooms and get on and serve their residents.
Thank you, Councillor. I have got speakers, Councillor Tarling, Martin, Aikenhead, Walters, Pudivin, Dove, and I was going to say, I'm going to stop at Councillor Canavan. Members, I just don't want any more speakers to really say what we've all said already. So it's very, very hot in here. We are now down to Councillor Connolly, and then I'm going to close this list. So I'm going to go now to Councillor Michael Tarling. Hopefully we're very brief, Councillor Tarling.
Never am I going to be brief. I'm going to use all my 3 minutes as other people have. I feel your pain. I feel your pain. I've been a Christchurch Town Councillor since its inception. I've been involved in the property committee looking to find a new permanent home for the Town Council. It is difficult, but do you know what? Suck it up, buttercup. You know, and this is what the Town Council's about. You know, you're put out there, you're elected to become a Town Councillor, to run your own Town Council, not come back to mummy and daddy and ask for more help. This is what it's about being a Town Councillor, is representing. You might find, if you look around your high streets, probably more space than we have in Christchurch, where you could actually take on another property. You might find an empty shop unit that will convert very nicely into an office for your officers, and perhaps a meeting room to hold your committee meetings. In Christchurch, we still haven't found that, anything suitable. So we tend to use our local village hall, Druitt Hall, which is now operated as, I believe, a CIC. And again, as Councillor Sidaway said, you know, we put money back into our community, which is what Town Council is about. So I would just implore, please, you know, I find it, like some other speakers have said, rather concerning that the councillors come here representing not the best interests of BCP Council, but coming as almost with a vested interest. I know we've got dispensation for this, but when you've actually proposed a motion for something that's, you know, contrary to the benefit of this council, it's very concerning. I remember our first inductions we had, where the then chief executive said, right, councillors, you've been elected by your electors in your ward to represent them. You also have another duty, and that is to the whole of BCP, to all the electors in BCP as an individual councillor, but also to the corporate body of the council. And I think you've fallen down on that part, because you're not representing either the whole of BCP, neither the body corporate. So, you know, I won't be supporting this, unsurprisingly. Thank you.
Councillor Andy Martin, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to colleagues for mentioning Christchurch already. You would expect me to stand up and talk about Christchurch, so I will, and I'll cut out some of the stuff that's repetitious. We have BCP councillors here who also sit on each of the parish and town councils in Christchurch: Burton, Herne, Christchurch, Highcliffe. All of these have made their own arrangements. Herne and Burton for quite a long time, because they were pre-existing. Highcliffe and Christchurch since 2019, when they were formed during the LGR process. We all pay for our own meetings and our own expenses, or meeting expenses, or anybody gets the wrong idea about expenses. And we wouldn't dream of asking BCP to subsidise us. So absolutely no way would I support this nonsense. We all pay our own way. And I have to say, when we look at the financial challenges that BCP has, because of funding cuts from central government, increasing demand, fewer resources, it's a bit of an insult to come here and ask for money from BCP that needs to go into frontline services, like, for example, libraries, or non-statutory services like culture. So that's made me, it's quite irritating. And the people of Christchurch, if this went through, if it were to become a policy at some point, the people of Christchurch would be subsidising the people, the town councils, and that is completely unacceptable. And forgive me for being a little bit touchy about this, because we've been down this road before, as my good friend Councillor Beasley knows. Under LGR, yeah, there we go. Glad you remember it. Glad you think it's funny. Under LGR, Councillor Beasley, which Councillor Beasley led, when the council was formed, it was the plan to make Christchurch residents pay for 7 years more council tax than Bournemouth and Poole, so that you would be. Yes, it was. I don't know what. Yeah. Unfortunately for you, you weren't able to implement that because the Unity Alliance came in, and council tax was equalised on day one, not after 7 years. Anyway, sorry, who's talking?
Can I
Just
just
let me finish.
interrupt here? I don't want the argument to go across the floor, whether people are
Thank
right
you.
or
Thank
wrong,
you,
and I
Chair.
know who's right. Let's just stick to the point.
So, my last couple of points. Councillor Martin over there says it's BCP's responsibility to work constructively with the town and parish councils. Absolutely. As they do in Highcliffe, where we've just got a £200,000 cliff path improvement plan starting next month, which will improve access for our residents and visitors. £200,000. And finally, if you want to know how to run a town council or a parish council, come to Highcliffe and we'll show you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Aikenhead, please.
Thank you. So I'd like to draw everyone's attention to point 4 in the motion. Local taxpayers should see as much of their parish precept as possible spent on community benefit rather than administrative overheads. I believe this to be absolutely true. And also, I believe the same thing applies to their council tax. And I believe there are 3 reasons why this motion will not deliver that. Firstly, there is a point made saying that money spent on room hire will not be spent on local services, environmental improvements. Well, actually, it will. If you rent a BCP room, then that money goes to BCP and will be spent on local services. If you rent a local hall from someone else, it keeps that hall going in the local community. My second point is the Poole and Bournemouth parish town councils have not put forward any proposals to improve any local services, to do any environmental improvements, to do any community projects, or to provide any support for residents at a local level. Until these proposals come forward, I cannot see how this money would be spent on these things. My third point is this motion asks for a report. It's asking for, as mentioned by another councillor, very high-level officers to be involved in a lot of administrative work. And then at the end of that, if the report resulted in a policy decision, that policy decision administration. So I would say in summary that what this motion does is encourage there to be more administration without providing any extra benefit for local residents. And this is why I shall be voting against.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Waters, please.
Thank you. You'll be glad to know I deleted the bits in my speech that other people have already said. I feel a lot of the previous speakers haven't noticed that the motion is asking for a cost-neutral usage of these buildings. Presumably that would mean that the town council would cover any costs to BCP Council. However, we should still vote this down, as if we're trying to save taxpayers money, then there are far cheaper options out there than BCP buildings. Just ask those running Broadstone Town Council. There are 2 reasons that this motion has been brought to this council chamber. 1, because Bournemouth Town councillors wish to cosplay as BCP councillors by having their meetings in this room. 2, the second is that when residents rightfully question why reform achieved nothing whilst running these town councils, they want to be able to point at BCP and say, well, it's because that lot over there didn't help us, despite the fact that the rest of the town and parish councils have gotten their act together with the exact same level of support from BCP Council. Now, some might say, well, reform ran on a ticket of being anti-town council, so why would they do anything? However, that isn't the only thing they ran on. Their leaflet that ran in Poole in every area during the recent town council stated, "Our pledge to you and our plan for the town councils, return pride to our town and communities, tackling litter and graffiti and antisocial behaviour. All of these things can be done without BCP, so get on with it. Deliver services effectively and efficiently. You can do this without BCP, so get on and provide these services that you're talking about. There is nothing efficient about wanting to use this and other BCP old and expensive buildings." There was recently an article in the Bournemouth Echo where Bournemouth Town councillors from the Reform Party were talking about how they felt Bournemouth Town Centre was run down, as if they're not already sat on a very large pot of money. If you don't like the state of Bournemouth Town Centre, then do something about it. You have far more readily available cash than BCP does. Residents will cotton on to this farce eventually. Every single other town and parish council in BCP has gotten their act together and found far cheaper places for their meetings than BCP can offer, even at a cost-neutral rate. It's time for these two town councils to do the same.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Marion de Popperton, please.
Thank you, Chair. A lot of what I wanted to say has already been said, so I'll try and keep it brief. Like Councillor Aikenhead, I particularly took note of item 4 about using as much of the parish precept as possible on community benefit. And it's clear that Poole Town Council has yet to come up with any meaningful proposals to spend the substantial money that's in the budget for such purposes on anything for to benefit residents. All they're doing is obsessing and trying their hardest to buy the vertical slice of the old Poole Civic Centre. How that actually benefits residents in their day-to-day lives, I fail to see. How they think they're going to afford it is quite another matter, but we won't go there. And like Councillor Sidaway, I'm very happy that our Poole Town Council clerk has made long-term arrangements to use 2 different church halls for the full council and the committee meetings, benefiting those organisations and bringing the council and councillors out into the community where people can take part. So I shall not be supporting this either.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dove, please.
Thank you. Just really quickly, it was the shadow cabinet for LGR that set the budget and the council tax precept. It had to be set in the April prior to LGR. It was not the Three Towns Alliance or Rainbow Alliance, whatever they were called at the time. So this is absolutely the right place to hear this debate. We are being asked as BCP councillors as to whether or not we are charging town councils to use public buildings. Trying to divert it something that it's not is misleading and quite disingenuous. So David Brown wants us to concentrate, Councillor Brown, sorry, wants us to concentrate on a number of issues: ASB, adult social care, drug care, alcohol programmes. Is he suggesting, therefore, that we ring fence any income through these town councils to fund these vital projects? I bet they don't. So let's be honest and call this for what it is. It's a money and cash grab by this BCP Lib Dem administration. We warned about it. We warned them that the Lib Dems were selling this is something that it isn't, and it is, and it always will be, the wolf in sheep's clothing, as we're beginning to see. If other town councils don't want to make a request for use of public buildings, so be it. That in itself does not invalidate this motion. Councillor Aikenhead states that this will become a 2-tier system. That's a choice for each council to decide as to whether or not they make a request. Why not ask her residents if they wish for this request to be made on their behalf? Councillor Andy Martin says it's an insult asking for money. I think it's an insult asking residents to pay for a council that they didn't want, that actually belongs to the BCP Council, to hold these meetings. And being told to suck it up? Really? Is that what we say to councillors who've been elected by their residents and we treat them in that disdainful way in this chamber? I think it's disgusting. Unlike Lib Dems, some actually campaigned on ensuring that the cost to residents as a result of town councils were kept to a minimum. It's good to see that some are actually adhering to their election promises. I don't agree with everything that reforms say and do, but on this I do. So money to the community, no. Back to the coffers of BCP Council to spend on even more vain Lib Dem projects that residents do not want, yes. And the projects that Councillor Brown mentioned, never. And and lastly, representing BCP Council, I'm not a town councillor, and I'm representing my residents who do not want to pay extra for these town councils that they did not request. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dove. And vis-a-vis, there's been a couple of mentions of harmonisation. I think I can do no better than quote the Queen: recollections may vary, the facts do not, and I think we know the facts. Councillor Canavan.
I move the question be put.
There's 3 people.
Right, how do we do that vote? Yeah,
There's only two speakers there.
Hmm?
There's only two speakers there.
No, I've got loads here, Stephen. Yeah. Councillors, we've been asked to put the motion up, to put the, so sorry, I can't speak, it's too hot. Does everybody agree that we should go straight to the vote? I have Councillor Hadley, Connolly and Bartlett already wishing to speak. Councillor sorry? Well, come on, leader, say it then, please.
So I'm usually the first to say yes, please, but there's only 3 more, so I'm happy to.
As the chair, I don't want to go to the vote on this occasion, much as I usually do want to go to the vote, as you know. I now have Councillor Hadley, Councillor Connolly and Councillor Bartlett. Those are the last 3 speakers. And then, of course, we have the seconder who is wishing to speak. And then I think we will then go to the vote. So, Councillor Hadley.
Thank you. Well, the original motion was typical, I guess, from the party of Mr. Farage expecting freebies. I think it's pretty outrageous. And if you go back, the proposer suggested that the costs were new. Under the Charter Trustees, it was the Charter Trustee precept that paid for the meeting rooms and paid BCP Council for the use of certainly in the pool building. And that is used as a registry office and a marriage room during the day, and it's only right and proper that the costs that are needed are funded by whoever is making use of it. I recently hosted a People's Emergency Briefing, or the council, which I led, and we used Highcliffe Castle and Scaplan's Court, and we paid for use of the room. That was internal within BCP, paying for the use of the room. And I did check with the Section 151 officer, and that is actually all that you needed to do. And it is clear that the price that is currently being paid is cost price. It's not a profit. So actually, this motion is a complete waste of time. Thank you.
Councillor Connolly, please.
I've lost my, there you go. Thank you. I'll keep it brief. I wasn't planning to speak on this, but I do feel very strongly from the perspective of the finances of BCP that we should not be spending a penny on any organisation where that could be spent on frontline services, children's services, adult social care services. And even if these town councils were doing wonderful things in the community, I find it difficult to believe they would be more deserving than many other community organisations I could list, which do excellent work in the communities. And while we're on this subject, I think it's really important to point out that the motion reflects the need to spend money in the community. And to those of you listening, I beg you, please do so then. From Boscombe and Popestown, we had control over the neighbourhood portion of Sill, and we spent it well right back in the community. We bought play parks, we've done up gardens, spent it right back in the community. Please, can we have it back? If you're not going to be spending it, 1.5 million a year that Bournemouth Town Council, the biggest town council in the country, is sitting on with no plans to spend. And they don't have a process set up for how anything would be spent either. They gave one small grant to a community organisation and then 5 minutes later turned down another one. No explanation, no process, no transparency. So I think it's absolutely outrageous the sheer amount of money you're sitting on, not spending in our community, and to then go asking for free meetings. I think you should have less meetings, and I think the town council should actually do something and spend some money in our community.
Councillor Bartlett, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What I find messing with all these town councils didn't take long, did it? But what I will say is that if you look at the cost of a building, you have fixed costs and you have variable costs. The fixed costs of this building are paid. Now, if somebody wants to use this building, and why shouldn't they, if it's a public building, why shouldn't another town council use the building if they pay the different costs, the variable costs associated with it? If I was at home, a resident looking at this and said, what I'm hearing is that we're saying, no, we can't do that. It'd be preferable, even if this building was empty, that another council organisation should hire a private room up on Christchurch Road and use their taxpayers' money to pay for a private room when they could be in a taxpayer-funded facility that is empty. That is ridiculous. So why on earth, provided it is cost neutral and those variable costs are picked up, why could they not use it? Or anybody else for that matter? And it doesn't have to be this building, any council or publicly owned building. As long as those variable costs are picked up, why shouldn't they be allowed to do it? That's the point I'm making. Thank you.
Councillor Cameron Adams, would you like to speak as a seconder?
Councillor Canavan's got his thing. I don't know if he wanted
Yes.
to. Oh,
Councillor Canavan, would you like to speak prior to Councillor Adams, please?
give me the shot. I'll take that as a no. But I think Councillor Bartlett put the point as eloquently as he could. Obviously, councillors. No, you put it much more eloquently than I could. Obviously, Councillor Tarling said that we aren't representing the interest of BCP Council, but another body. Neither myself nor Councillor Martin are town councillors, so this isn't true. Who we are representing is the taxpayers of Bournemouth Pool and any other local council that wants to have a go. We're standing up. Why is it right that BCP Council charges the taxpayer that already pays for the bloody building £500 a meeting to use the building that the taxpayer has already paid for? I accept if there's other costs, we should meet them. And at the moment, we are renting elsewhere, and we saved. It was budgeted £500 a room by this working group £500 a meeting. Sorry, for each and every meeting. We've already saved 2/3 of that cost. All we're trying to do is spend as little as possible to give our taxpayers something back. I don't see why this is so absurd. You've all mentioned all this wonderful stuff, all these buildings we should be hiring. Not one of you's mentioned respect for the taxpayer, which is why I was against creating these bloody councils in the first place, because all it is you trying to rinse as much money as you can off these councils, setting an obscenely high precept and clawing as much of it back for yourselves. All Reform are
Can
trying
you wait
to
a
do...
moment? Councillor Farquhar, you're standing.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. I can't quote you the particular point of order. However, I think is a given from your speech at the start that we should treat this place with respect and have us in it. That's 2 items of profanity which should come out of Councillor Adams' mouth in his speech. I appreciate that he's passionate about this subject, but we need to have a degree of tolerance within this chamber. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. And the point is taken.
I will apologise.
Thank you.
Now, I can't remember which one it was, but I'm sorry, Karen, and sorry, George. I am ever so sorry. I didn't write it down. It's the fact that no one's mentioned respect for the actual taxpayers that pay all of our wages, already pay for this building. And all we're saying is if we can do it on a cost neutral basis, half of this massive building is empty 80% of the time. Why can't we, not just town councils, maybe charities, why can't we evaluate the cost and actually let people use the community building they already pay for? So it's really that simple. And we're not saying do anything, we're just asking how much it actually costs.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Right, I'm just going to oh, sorry, Chief Exec. I'm just going to remind us of the motion that it is facilities for parish and town councils without charge. I think there's been some confusion that you'd get nothing for nothing.
Cost neutral, the amendment's
Cost neutral, okay. Councillor Martin, you sum up from the debate.
The confusion over the title is actually my fault. That was the original title. That was the original motion I brought, and then I actually changed the motion, but I forgot to change the title. So it is actually it's just working out the parish councils. It's just working out the cost, not to bring in a policy. Why is this a BCP issue? We are representing our residents. BPC residents and town and parish council residents are one of the same. They've been charged an extra precept for the town and parish councils. If town councils had not been brought in, then there would be no need for town council meetings, and there would be no need for storage, all the other things, parking, all the other costs as well. The meetings cost money. We simply wish all this motion and wishes to ascertain is the actual cost, so that we can be transparent to our residents. The precept is charged to BCP residents. It's not a rough estimate. Our residents should know the actual cost. It's their money. When the BCP councils were, when the town and parish councils were formed, residents were promised there would be no additional cost. I believe they were misled. There is additional cost. If that money wasn't being spent on meeting rooms and security and parking and everything else that comes with town council meetings, it could be spent on the things that the councillor mentioned over there, like cleaning the streets, drug addiction, play parks, things like that. It just simply seems to me that the residents didn't want a town and parish. They didn't want the town councils. They didn't want the parish councils. That was ignored. They're actually costing money, and now the Lib Dems are trying to ignore that too. We're not asking for funding. We're asking for facts. I.e., what's the actual cost? The town councils and parish councils were not wanted in the first place. Because many people here, when they speak, and have tried to make jokes about this. But paying this extra precept for our town and parish councils is not funny to our residents. It's not been funny to a lot of our residents. They haven't found it a joke. They found it quite a struggle to raise that extra cash. That's all. Thank you.
Oh, Councillor Salmon, you've got a point of order?
But after Councillor Martin's speech, I'm not sure what this motion's for. Is it for meetings to be free? Is it for town councils to pay for them, but for them to be cost neutral, which apparently, according to Councillor Hadley, was already on the table? Or is it a fact-finding motion for, if this passes, BCP Council will give a quote back to the town councils? I'm not really sure. Can we just get some clarification on it? And if it doesn't make sense, can I propose that the motion is referred back to the proposer to maybe read it?
Yes, I totally agree with you, Councillor Salmon, that it was a bit of a mix-up, and I added to the mix-up by having on my paper the previous heading. However, we can't go backwards and forwards. So, members, we've got this far with the motion, and we now need to go to the vote, and we will do it on our machines. Thank you. Everybody voted, members? I think so. As you see on the board, the motion has fallen. Thank you. Members, I know it's terribly hot, we feel it up here, but I think we will just persevere now and do the next motion, which is from Councillor Sandra Moore. Motion to council, age-friendly Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. That's more of a statement than a motion, isn't it? But still, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Moore.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, now for something completely different, I think. Certainly a different tone. So, the reason I brought this motion to council is because Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole have more older adults than the national average, and more than 1 in 3 people are aged 50 or over. And by 2031, more than half of the population will be 50 or over. Now, this demographic change brings opportunities, but also risks putting pressure on local transport, health, housing, and community services. So we have teamed up with lots of partners locally to help make our communities more age-friendly. We work with local businesses, including Bournemouth Bid, are also part of the Centre for Ageing Better UK network of age-friendly communities and have been recognised by the World Health Organization. Yes, our ageing population is a primary driver of adult social care demand, but there's far more to ageing well. Thanks to evidence-based data from many organisations, including our own Bournemouth University, we also know car ownership decreases with age, impacting mobility and increasing reliance on public or community transport. We recognise the importance of good access to public transport to help reduce social isolation. We also know not everyone who is entitled to take up pension credit, and that supporting unpaid carers is a key focus for this council. And we recognise the importance of supporting older workers to remain in fulfilling employment. We believe that talking about healthy ageing and improving accessibility can help everyone, including future generations. So I ask you to acknowledge all the work outlined in this motion and would encourage you all to sign the age-friendly charter, which was created from listening to older residents about what they felt was important to create an age-friendly Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. Lastly, I would like to thank Heather Olive, BCP's amazing age-friendly coordinator, for all her excellent work helping to make this beautiful area of ours become more age-friendly. And can I ask you all to support this motion? I believe if we make Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole better for older people, we actually make it better for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Canavan, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's a real pleasure to second this motion and to support the contents of this, because they, unlike the previous debate, actually benefit our community. So the important part of this motion, from my point of view, is that it highlights the statistics and indicates how the age-friendly charter is really just one part of how BCP is trying to respond to those demands. So the issue of increasing demand has been something that I know Councillor Brown will be aware has been examined by Health and Adult Social Care Overview and Scrutiny. And there are two really key developments in trying to cope with that. One has been the exercise of fulfilled lives, and the other is future care. And these are organisational changes that are designed to help us deal with the increasing demand. But importantly, at their heart, they are about an effective approach to ageing well. The importance of adult social care is a key statutory function, but needs to be seen, in my view, in a wider context. And that's why the section of this motion that mentions health inequalities and the impact on older residents is really important. Bournemouth recently hosted the Local Government Association Conference, and during that there was a speech by Baroness Casey, and in her speech she talked about the so-called health and social care system. And what she was stressing was that, in fact, there is no single system, and that a much greater degree of integration is needed. And it was therefore really, really great to hear that a much anticipated report is going to be brought forward. So, and I only mention this because I think it's important to understand how all of the work that we're doing in BCP, including the work that's being done by our public health team, is beginning to join up those dots between the various functions. And even if I, as the greatest cynic in the world, probably can see the changes that's beginning to make, then I think that's quite significant. So I think this motion is quite timely, and it forms an important part of the work that BCP is doing to make us an age-friendly community. So I would like to join Councillor Moore in encouraging all councillors. I've signed it. It doesn't take very long. It's a quick and easy process. And I think it sets out the clear goals that include inclusivity and communication that is tailored to those who are getting older.
Thank you, Councillor. Very well put. Councillor Vicky Slade, please.
Thank you, Chair. I very much support this work, and particularly the comment that if we make this an age-friendly community, those changes benefit other groups of people, whether it's people with learning disabilities, people where English isn't their first language, people who are neurodiverse, all of the changes that we can make to reflect one group can very often benefit another group. And I just want to touch on specifically on the issue of dementia. For the growing number of older people who are living with dementia and the carers that support them, I'm pleased to see that there's an intent to continue training staff alongside PRAMA. But I'm also conscious that we really do need to make sure that employers and businesses are training their staff. When we had our business in Broadstone, we were all dementia friends, and I think it's a programme which we should be encouraging more businesses to take up so that places feel far more inclusive. I did bring together all of the councils in the Wessex area and the Health Authority to actually try and push forward with a dementia pathway. And I'd be keen to hear, if not tonight, but some follow-up information about the progress of that, because since it was brought forward, it does appear to have stalled. So as part of the age-friendly community, I would really love us to be completely dementia-friendly as a place. And finally, there was a comment there about the benefit of Bournemouth Town Centre through its Take a Seat campaign. And just to say, there are lots of other town centres in BCP, and I hope that places like Southbourne and Broadstone and Parkstone and Poole will similar measures in place.
Thank you, Councillor Slade. And not that I'm speaking for a town council because I'm not on it now, but I think Christchurch Town Council did go on the dementia-friendly route, didn't it? So yes, very, very, very important. Councillor Trent.
Thank you, Chair. I agree and welcome the motion, but I do want certain things considered, and that's avoiding excluding people because of their age or ability. I still get, I know it's years out of date now, I still get phone calls on my landline from residents who don't do apps, don't do online reporting and things like that, who want help. And I've, tried to explain to the best of my ability, being a bit of a technophobe myself, how to use facilities. But there are a lot of people out there that do feel excluded from what's going on. And it's not just age, although age is a thing, but it's ability, it's also people's mental state, because dementia was just mentioned. People do deteriorate. I feel I'm deteriorating to a degree, but I do think that we need to make sure that we take account of all needs, and you don't get a situation where people are phoning me because they can't use the systems that we say this is how you do things. But I'm in the situation where I have to phone a friend sometimes. I can't park here. Have you got your, your number and things like that, sort of. So I do think we need to make sure that we are inclusive and we don't overlook people's needs and for sort of help and support. So I support it, but I do think we need to look at the much wider picture.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Farr.
Let's face it, none of us are getting any younger. I hit half a century in March, and oh shit, sorry, I lost my grandmother in January. She would have been 100 in March. Sorry for the swearing, but almost at a moment there. I wasn't intending to speak about this bit. Yeah, I feel quite passionate about looking after older people, especially when it comes to dementia. I haven't seen my grandmother fade away in a care home, and I think, like I say, we're all getting older. No one's getting any younger, so we need to really make sure that we put this into place. And I think it's something which has got to have cross-party support. I don't think anyone's going to disagree on voting this through. So yeah, that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farr. I think we can honestly say that none of us are getting any younger. We can't dispute that, so thank you. Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Incredible as it, sorry, Chairman, I beg your pardon. This goes down to the point I was about to make. Incredible as it may seem, there aren't many members of this council that are actually older than I am. In fact, I think there's two. And in fact, because I'm so old, I thought I ought to declare an interest in this motion because it's all about supporting people like me. So I do declare that interest, but I just want to thank Councillor Moore for bringing this paper forward because it is so important. And one thing I'd like to, and it picks up on Councillor Slade's point about dementia. Dementia is an awful, awful situation for individuals and their families to bear. And I'd like to commend the Prima Life Manager training that's given in this building. It helped me personally through some very difficult problems with a dear relative over many years. And for me, it highlights, this paper really highlights what we need to do to support our elderly people. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. I think that's come to the end of the speaking. I just want to say one thing. As most of you know, I did at one point run a nursing home, and a lot of the residents there were very, very proud of being very, very old and used to say to everybody, "Do you know how old I am?" And of course, we had to say they looked much younger, which I think is a very good ploy. Now we have Councillor Moore to wind up, please.
For your support. Yes, I totally agree with you about the working with dementia, and I'm more than happy to include other town centres, but I only actually mentioned Bournemouth because we worked with Bournemouth Bid with their Take a Seat campaign, which is actually in what was Bobby's. Digital exclusion, you will be pleased to know, is actually included in our age-friendly work, and it's been backed up by data from Bournemouth University. So you're not alone, Tony. There are others just like you, and we are working with them. So in conclusion, I'd just like to say that, yes, I totally agree. If we make life better for older people, we do make life better for everyone. Thank you for your support. And can I ask you to sign the charter? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Moore. And members, I think we have got consensus on this and we are all going to sign. Can I say that? Agreed. Thank you very much, councillors, for bringing that. We are now on, I hope, agenda item 9. Can I just look at Neil? Is that right? We're on agenda item 9. Questions from councillors. It would normally be our break, but I think we're going to soldier on because we only have 3 questions from 2 councillors. And this is where Councillor Cooper cannot be present this evening. So I'm allowing the questions to be asked by Councillor Canavan as substitute. However, as substitute, Councillor Canavan will not be permitted to ask supplementary questions. And as previously agreed, and as always, the time limit for asking and responding is 3 minutes. Councillor Patrick Canavan, could you put Councillor Cooper's question, which is on the rollout of food waste to the port... Oh, I'm so sorry, I should have put a comma there. The rollout of food waste to the portfolio holder for climate response, environment and energy.
Thank you very much, Chair. Can the administration explain why the recent rollout of the food waste collection service has been so inconsistent and disruptive across our communities? Residents have experienced missed or late bin deliveries, confusion over start dates and collections not taking place on a scheduled day. These issues are not limited to food waste. Similar problems are being reported with black and blue bin collections. On top of this, there are growing concerns about the speed of collection vehicles in residential areas and bins being left on pavements, blocking access for families, wheelchair users and those with walking aids. Councils are also having to chase updates rather than being proactively informed, leaving residents without clear answers. can you set out what has gone wrong across all waste collection services, what immediate steps are being taken to stabilise performance, and how safety concerns around vehicle speeds are being addressed, and how the council will ensure clear communication and regular updates to both councillors and residents? And when can residents expect a reliable, consistent service across food, recycling and black bin collections?
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hadley, please.
Thank you. I'm afraid that's a very detailed question. The answer is therefore quite long, but I'll speak as quickly as I can. The National Simpler Recycling Reforms place a range of new responsibilities on all local authorities, with the intention to increase the proportion of waste that is recycled and to reduce the residual waste going to landfill or incineration. There are many positive aspects to the changes, but also disruption. I am sorry that the reliability has not been the service that we want for our residents. The BCP team worked hard and met the April 26th target for separate food waste. Some other authorities failed to order equipment or trucks in time. The team have been responsive in trying to fault find issues which are multifaceted. Funding from government was very tight, and it quickly became clear that the take-up of the service in Poole exceeded the estimates based on historic food collection in Bournemouth. A further truck was purchased, which has enabled the rounds to be rebalanced to better match demand. Rebalancing is an ongoing process as the service beds in. We've also seen an increase in presentation of food waste in the Bournemouth and Christchurch areas with the media coverage. Despite the reports of missed bins and dissatisfaction, the tonnage of food waste collected has risen in each of the first 3 months of operation to 652 tonnes in June 26, compared to 348 tonnes last year. That's 13% of the black bin residual waste being diverted to anaerobic digestion, producing gas, feeding into the gas mains, and soil improved for local farms. When food waste trucks are full, crews on the rounds in Poole experience extended delays in getting from the round area over to Herne, emptying and then getting back. We have procured 2 sealed skips to site at Hatch Pond in order to reduce the downtime from collecting the waste. Because many authorities have also experienced similar issues, the delivery time is extended. The first one arrived this week and is in operation. This should improve service reliability. Quite a few staff are approaching retirement, and we have experienced problems in recruiting and retaining staff, especially with the additional crews needed for the 6 additional food waste vehicles. The new staff and agency crews sometimes miss unfamiliar addresses on new rounds. All vehicles are fitted with onboard CCTV and vehicle telemetry systems. Food collections from flats is also a new service, and familiarity with the varied access to bin stores by these new crews has also been a challenge. The teams service 60 rounds per day, 1.4 million collections per month. The extreme hot weather has affected all waste services, with increased staff sickness and machinery failure. On only one really hot day, the crews were stood down for 3 hours for their own welfare. The position is dynamic from day to day, and we have attempted to communicate out as we can. I have written to all BCP councillors several times, and we've held briefings for councillors to update them, and I've appeared on the radio and in the press to advise people of the status of the service. When bins on a road are not collected, the teams will work late and attempt to collect the next day, including weekend working to catch up. Food waste can also be taken to any of the 3 recycling centres. My mailbox, both from councillors and the public, has been constant on this topic. Where individual bins are missed, we do ask people to check whether their road is in the missed rounds, wait 24 hours for catch-up, and then use the report it service, which is more reliable and less disruptive than by email. There is a cross-party working group to delve into the detail of all the forthcoming changes on waste management. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And obviously there is no supplementary, but Councillor Canavan, there is another question from Councillor Cooper, which I believe you are putting for him, on the Poole Town Council elections to the portfolio holder for transformation, resources and governance, who is Councillor Hannah. And Councillor Hannah being not here, I'm going to look at the leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. At the recent Poole Town Council elections, many residents remained opposed to the introduction of town councils, and that strength of feeling was reflected in the outcome at the ballot box. However, it also became apparent that a significant number of members of the public had little understanding of what they were actually being asked to vote for, or why this new tier of local government was being introduced. The communications and public information campaign was widely perceived as inadequate, with many residents confusing the elections with other polls. Indeed, even some officers across the council were unclear about the role, purpose and responsibilities of the new town councils. Whilst I appreciate that the implementation timetable was challenging, the democratic process relies upon informed electorate, regardless of whether people support or oppose the policy. Can the relevant officers outline what lessons have been learned from the communication strategy surrounding the inaugural town council elections, and what improvements will be put in place to ensure that ahead of future town council elections, residents receive clear, accessible and timely information about what the purpose, powers and responsibilities of town councils are, enabling them to make informed democratic choices?
Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Canavan and Councillor Cooper too. I recognise the importance of ensuring that residents have access to clear and timely information about elections and about the role of any new tier of local government. I also recognise that the creation of the new town councils followed a significant public debate and a democratic process, and that views about that decision remain strongly held, as we've seen here this evening. It is important, however, to distinguish between the council's role in administering elections and the political debate surrounding them. Councillors do not and should not control or seek to influence the delivery of elections. Elections are regulated and conducted in accordance with regulation and national guidance, including guidance issued by the Electoral Commission. The returning officer is responsible for ensuring that the poll is administered properly, impartially and independently. And I think our officers have done an incredible job at making sure that that is the case. I do acknowledge that national political factors will often influence voting behaviour at local elections. That's a feature of democratic politics, and it's not something that the council can control. The council's responsibility is to ensure that the election is administered lawfully, fairly and transparently, and that electors are provided with the necessary factual information to enable them to participate. I do not accept that there was widespread confusion about the nature of the elections. Every registered elector was sent a poll card which identified the specific election taking place and provided the relevant voting information. In addition, and unusually for town and parish council elections, every seat was contested and turnout was relatively high when compared with typical town and parish council elections. The level of contest indicates a high degree of candidate and party engagement and ensured that electors in every ward had a choice at the ballot box. In terms of publicity, the council promoted and published election awareness information through its own channels, including on its website, social media and through the local media routes as well. There was substantial press coverage, and I understand the Bournemouth Echo alone published more than 20 pre-election articles relating to the town council elections. Taken together with the delivery of poll cards to every elector, I consider the council's publicity to have been proportionate. It is also right to recognise that candidates and political parties share a responsibility for communicating with residents and explaining their positions and encouraging participation and helping electors understand the choices available to them. The council must remain politically neutral in its own communications and cannot campaign for or against any outcome or candidate or party. That said, there are always lessons to consider after an electoral event, and officers will review communications activity undertaken, including the clarity, timing and accessibility of information about the role, purpose and responsibilities of town councils. Any appropriate learning will be incorporated into future planning. The future town council elections are scheduled to be combined with BCP Council elections in May 2031. That will provide a further opportunity to align public information, electoral communications and wider voter awareness activity. However, as I've said, the turnout for these inaugural town council elections was relatively high, all seats contested. The council's role was properly focused on the lawful, impartial and proportionate administration of the elections. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Right, question 3. Councillor Canavan, you have a question to put to the portfolio holder for communities and partnerships on public debate and crime, migration and community safety. And you're putting this on your own behalf. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. In recent months, public debate, both nationally and locally, has increasingly involved the use of claims relating to crime, migration and community safety. In some cases, information and statements that have involved misinformation have led to unrest and demonstrations based on false assumptions and speculation. Given the influence of public figures have within public discourse and recognising our collective responsibility to act with integrity, accuracy and care, could the portfolio holder outline, one, what ethical and moral responsibility elected representatives have to verify information before making public statements, particularly on sensitive issues that may affect community relations? Two, whether the council agrees that all elected representatives should seek to promote community cohesion, public confidence and respectful dialogue, rather than risk deepening fear, mistrust or division through the sharing of inaccurate or unverified claims. Three, whether there is scope for strengthened standards around responsible communication and the use of evidence in public statements made by elected representatives. At a time when communities can too easily become polarised, is it not vital that those in public office lead with responsibility, accuracy and a commitment to social cohesion?
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Moore, can you reply, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm afraid this is going to be a long answer as well, but thank you for your question. Yes, statements made by elected representatives and other public officials should be grounded in fact, reliable evidence and valid data, especially where those statements relate to sensitive matters such as crime, migration or community safety. BCP Council is one of the most politically diverse councils in England. Councillors hold different political views, priorities and opinions, and those differences should be respected. However, we all share a responsibility to ensure public statements are based on facts, reliable evidence and valid data. Public debate is strengthened when robust, but undermined when claims are made without a clear evidence base. Inaccurate or unverified information can damage public confidence, create unnecessary fear, increase mistrust, and make the work of the council, the police, and our partners more difficult. All councillors should therefore take steps to check the accuracy of information before sharing it publicly. And the 7 principles of public life, the Nolan principles, apply to all holders of public office. They require honesty, openness, accountability, objectivity, and leadership. Councillors are also required to comply with the council's code of conduct, which exists to protect public trust and confidence in local government. Where conduct falls below those standards, it is often possible to submit a complaint under the councillor conduct arrangements. Any complaint needs to be considered on its facts and in accordance with the council's adopted process. The council also has an important role in supporting community cohesion, resilience and respectful dialogue. This includes working with Dorset Police, community and voluntary organisations, schools, faith groups, youth services and other agencies. To share accurate information, listen to concerns, challenge misinformation where appropriate, and promote confidence between communities. These relationships are especially important at times of heightened national or local tension. As a council, we might like to support some continued work through the monitoring officer to ensure all members are reminded of the standards expected of them, including the responsible use of evidence, social media and public statements. These standards apply across all forms of communication. In this chamber, media statements, social media, written correspondence and in the wider community role that councillors undertake every day. Ultimately, all councillors have a shared responsibility to communicate honestly, accurately and respectfully in a way that is consistent with the trust placed in us by the communities we serve. Thank you.
Councillor Canavan, do you have a supplementary question, please?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Could a portfolio just outline what steps BCP will take specifically to tackle robustly misinformation and to respond to that promptly when it arises?
Councillor Moore, do you want to answer that now or give a written reply?
Sorry. Yeah, I pressed it twice. Yeah, apologies for that. Yeah, I did actually say that we could actually do some continued work with the monitoring officer, but I'm quite happy to talk to you about this afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore and Councillor Canavan. Right, item 10. Urgent decisions taken by the Chief Executive in accordance with the Constitution. Chief Executive, can you advise members of any urgent decisions?
Yep, no urgent decisions have been taken.
Thank you. That was very brief and to the point. Members, the next bit on the agenda is close the meeting. And can I just say thank you so much for sitting so patiently in this heat. Thank you very much indeed.